Welcome to the Kingman Unified School District podcast, where we talk all things KUSD. I'm your host, Claire Whitley. The KUSD podcast is a podcast for parents, students, staff, and the Greater Kingman Area. On this podcast, we talk about upcoming events, school board meetings, things to see, and any news related to our schools. This episode, we're going to talk about the State of the State address, the most recent COVID data, the January school board meeting, history, and upcoming dates to remember. I also sat down with Jerry Woolsey, Assistant Superintendent, for this month's Coffee Talks. But first and foremost on this episode, I would like to wish all of you a very happy new year! We made it through 2020, and if that doesn't deserve some kind of reward, I don't know what does. So here's to the new year and new beginnings. Speaking of new, the new term for incoming board member Roger Jacks and re-elected member Beth Weiser began this month. Both were sworn in at the January 12th meeting, and they are happily welcomed by the board. The board also appointed their new president and vice president. With the votes 4-1, Dr. Charles Lucero was appointed as president of the board, and Roger Jacks will preside as the VP. The board graciously accepted several donations, so from all of us here at KUSD, thank you for your continued support. Governor Doug Ducey gave his State of the State address Monday, January 11th. In the address, Ducey said, quote, "It's time to get our students back where they belong," unquote. Ducey cited several people, including the CDC, as saying the safest place for students to be is at school. That is why he added the state, quote, "will not be funding empty seats or allowing schools to remain in the perpetual state of closure. Children still need to learn even in a pandemic," unquote. With some clarification coming Tuesday, it appears Ducey meant that the state won't be compensating schools for the drop in student enrollment. If the district loses students, it follows that it would lose funding. Ducey did go on to talk about severe learning loss and an achievement gap that has only gotten worse since the pandemic began. Ducey said distance learning has been especially hard on students who are from lower socioeconomic groups, and that it is imperative for resources to be devoted to catching those students up. Quote, "Summer school, longer school days, one-on-one targeted instruction, tutoring. It should be our goal that every student graduates high school on time and at grade level," unquote. Surprising no one, we have new numbers for COVID data. The numbers changed a little bit since the last month. Currently, the Mojave County Health Department states that Kingman has 3,095 confirmed COVID cases. According to the COVID dashboard, we are in the red in all areas. We are looking at 654 cases per 100,000, a 19% positivity rating, and 15% of hospital visits were related to COVID-like symptoms. At the time of this recording, KUSD has 19 active cases in our staff population. There are also 66 closed positive cases, meaning 66 staff members have had it, but the cases are no longer active, and those staff members have returned to work. So what does all of that information mean for our school district? Currently, that means starting Tuesday, January 19th, KUSD will begin a hybrid model. This was a 3-2 vote at the board meeting Tuesday. With the turn of the year, it's time for every adult's favorite time. It's tax time. Oh joy. Joking aside, tax season is also the time of year to start declaring any tax credit donations. Arizona tax law allows taxpayers a tax credit of up to $200 or $400 for married couples if they contribute to extracurricular activities such as sports, band, yearbook, and fine arts, which typically are not fully funded by school districts. These programs depend primarily on fees from students and from the generosity of community members like you lovely listeners. Donations can go directly to the club or program of your choice, or you can allow the school to decide where students need it the most. Either way, you get a dollar-for-dollar tax credit on your state taxes, and students have the opportunity for a fuller educational experience. It's a win-win. If you are interested in making an Arizona tax credit donation, you can donate online or by taking the completed donation form to any KUSD school or the KUSD district office. For more information and taxpayer resources concerning Arizona's tax credit donation program, visit the Arizona Department of Revenue webpage or check out the series of videos we have linked on our own website that go into more detail on where your money goes. Thank you in advance for your continued support of your local public education system. The AIA voted to allow a winter sports season for Arizona schools. There will be a lot of restrictions and modifications going forward, however. At the time of this recording, the winter sports season is scheduled to have games starting next week. According to the schedules I was given, both high schools will begin play on January 19th. There will be a few home games, including varsity basketball and soccer. It is important to note that everyone at these games have to wear a mask the entire time. That means athletes and staff will be wearing them and competing with the mask on. The AIA is going to be very strict with this. If these modifications are not followed, they will pull refs and there will be consequences for the hosting team. So please wear masks when supporting our local teams. The biggest thing for all listeners to remember is that this is subject to change as per instruction from the AIA. I will do my best to keep all fans and families and athletes informed, so keep an ear out for updates. Both high schools are also sending out updates as they learn new information. This month, we'll be tying up the brief history of KUSD, which is perfect for the beginning of 2021. 20 years ago, in 2001, the true birth of Kingman Unified School District No. 20 was realized. July 1st of that year, Kingman Elementary School District No. 4, Mojave Union School District No. 30, Chloride School District No. 11, and Dolan Springs School District all combined to form Kingman Unified School District. KESD brought 5,000 students, MUHSD had 2,400 students, and Chloride had 250 students, which brought the new school district's population to 7,650 students in a rather expansive school district. The first superintendent of the newly unified school district was Mike Ford, who had been serving as superintendent of MUHSD, and his assistant super was Betsy Parker, who was serving as the KESD superintendent. And that now brings us to the present, after a history of excellence that spans 150 years. Today, Kingman Unified School District No. 20 is a preschool through 12th grade public school district. The attendance boundaries are J-shaped, reaching as far as the Colorado River and serving over 3,000 square miles. The district has 11 school sites with a total enrollment hovering around 6,700 students, and that number will continue to grow. And that wraps up the abridged version of KUSD history. I'll start the new series of KUSD history next month when I talk about a nationally recognized and an award-winning outdoor school program that was right here in our backyard, so tune in for that. This week on Coffee Talks, I'm sitting down with Assistant Superintendent Jerry Woolsey. Mrs. Woolsey, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us the cliff notes or an elevator speech about who you are when you're not the assistant super.
Well, I went to Kingman High School, class of 82, yay. I went to Mojave Community College after that and went on to Northern Arizona University and started teaching at Manzanita School.
Nice. So how long have you been with the district then, like as a teacher and administrator?
Since 1992.
1992, so that's 30 years now? Close to?
29. Next year will be 30. Yeah.
We do a big hoopla.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about a couple of business things before we get to the super tough questions that we have submitted. First and foremost, it's the beginning of the new year, which always means tax season, and everyone, we know love tax season. Everybody does.
Absolutely.
But I know that there's this program that we do as a district. It's the tax credit donation program.
Yeah, it's a great program. Anyone can donate. If you're single, $200. If you're a couple, up to $400. And you can literally put it to any school and any program that you would like. So if you have a child at White Cliffs Middle School that is really into the Cambridge program, you can donate your money to the Cambridge program at White Cliffs Middle School. Or if you don't have any children and you're like, that's a great idea, but I wouldn't know where to go, you could just donate it to any school or the district office, and then we would send it out. Say you wanted to go to the arts. Well, we would make sure that that money went to the arts at the schools. You get 100% of your money back from the state. So it's literally no money out of pocket. So if you owed $500 as a married couple and you donated $400, you would only end up paying that $100.
And then can it be like super specific? So say that I wanted to donate $200 to like White Cliffs band. Like I could be that specific. Yeah. I don't have to be as broad as...
Nope. You could say I want to donate to Miss Taylor's room at Manzanita School, and that money could go there.
And it's 100% reimbursed, right?
100%. Literally no money out of pocket, and it helps the students.
And it goes directly to, effectively, it goes directly to students, right? Mm-hmm. They're the ones that can utilize it.
It does not go towards salaries or anything like that. It can't. As a teacher, I purchased a carpet with it, some globes that spoke to you, some science equipment. As a teacher, when I had parents donate, that's what I spent it on.
Very cool. Yeah. That's Awesome. All right. So now, these questions that I'm going to ask you, I apologize if they're hard. There's some of them can be difficult when you have to think about it on the fly, but these have all been submitted by students from our district, and so these are things that they were curious about.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they wanted to get involved and ask you some questions. So we're going to start it off. I don't have names this week like I usually do because they didn't submit names with them, but we'll start it off with this one. What is your favorite book?
Wow, that is a difficult one. My favorite book would have to be, I'd have to choose one. That's hard to choose. Mm-hmm. Just the classics, or I used to read the classics to my students, Journey to the Center of the Earth, Gulliver's Travel, those type of things. So those are always fun to read, to peruse.
The one that I always go back to, like, whenever I'm just like, I need break from life. I always go back to Pride and Prejudice. Yeah. Like, that's like my go-to.
Pride and Prejudice, absolutely. Yeah, Mr. Darcy. Yes, absolutely.
Every girl wants a Mr. Darcy.
Right? Mr. Darcy. Yep, I love that book. God, I hadn't thought about that book in a long time.
Well, hopefully this one's a little easier. What's your favorite food?
Oh, that is easier. Ice cream. My favorite food is ice cream.
Well, that's actually a really good one because there's a follow-up then. What's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Oh, chocolate. Definitely chocolate.
Just raw chocolate?
Raw chocolate. Definitely.
None of that, like, triple chocolate? Just all the...
Oh, yeah. The more chocolate, the better. Yes.
Triple chocolate with chocolate stuff on top of it. Exactly. Just all of it.
Yes. With chocolate syrup and that hard shell stuff on top of that. Yeah.
All on a chocolate cookie.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite thing to do as an administrator?
Go out to schools, visit schools and get into classrooms, talk to teachers, just see what's going on at the schools.
Mm-hmm. And how often do you make those trips?
We try to get out there at least once every other week.
And what has been one of the most interesting things that you've seen this school year when you visited?
Oh, how good the students are with wearing their masks. I think they have done an outstanding job. I can go to a school that has 700 kids in it and, I can see maybe 2 kids with their mask under their nose. Otherwise, all of them are doing such a good job wearing their masks.
So you said earlier that you were a teacher. You were a teacher at Manzanita. So what grade did you teach when you started, and what other grades have you taught?
I started in 2nd grade, and I student taught in 4th grade at Wallapai School, and went to 2nd grade at Manzanita, and went to kindergarten, and then preschool.
When did you get your degree, and how long did it take you to get any following degrees that you...
Boy, that was a long time ago. Well, I graduated the year I started teaching, so 92 is when I earned my bachelor's degree, and then back then you had to get your master's to stay a teacher. So 2 years after that, I earned my master's degree. About 4 years after that, I earned my certifications in special education early childhood development.
So that's about 10 years worth of upper education, right?
Yeah.
Give or take?
Yeah.
What was one of your favorite things to learn doing that? Because that's a long time to be learning, and all of us are still learning. But what was kind of one of the things that stuck out from that time period?
I would say brain science, the development of the brain and that type of thing. Early childhood development was so interesting to me, and how your brain forms at an early age, all the way up to adulthood. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was very interesting.
Is it true that it's the birth to 5 years are the most crucial?
Yep. They form the synapses in your brain, and that's where everything starts connecting. Mm-hmm. After that, they still form, but they're at a slower pace.
So this one, I rephrased it because I felt like it was a little harsh. But so how many jobs have you had, and have you ever been laid off from any jobs?
I've never been laid off. In my life, how many times? Yes. How many jobs? Oh, goodness. My first job was a bus girl at a restaurant in Meadview, Arizona. And then my next job was I worked at a tire store for years, along with a truck stop and Kmart. and Burger King. I went to school and worked at Burger King and then started teaching.
And what made you want to be a teacher? What was kind of the driving point for that?
I think it was my teachers. I had some really awesome teachers and counselors. Sandy McCoy was my teacher in high school, and Mr. Marsley was my counselor, and Mr. Lala was my math teacher, and math was hard for me. So he tutored me, and the rest of them just were concerned. I felt like they cared about my well-being, and I think that's what sparked an interest.
All right, and I don't know if you have the answer to this one, but we're going to go into some school invention, I guess. Why are there so many hours in the school day?
So the state requires us to be in school for so many hours. I would have to pull up my sheet that says exactly how many, but the state makes those mandates and we have to abide by those rules.
And is that a yearly mandate or is that...
Yeah, it rarely changes. A couple years ago, the middle school numbers went down, so they don't have to attend as long as they used to.
So this is a fun one. I had to do research on this one yesterday. Actually, a couple of these yesterday. Who invented school?
Well, who takes credit for it is Horace Mann, and he was in a different country when he observed it. So he brought it back to the U.S. and said, we need to follow suit.
Around what year?
1837. And by 1918, every state was required students to go to elementary school.
As a secondary one, who invented homework then?
I don't know who invented homework. I'm sure homework came organically out of school, but there was a lot of discussion years ago if homework was good or bad. Actually, in California in 1901, the homework was deemed detrimental to children, and they were not allowed to have it.
Oh.
Isn't that interesting?
Wish that was Idaho when I was going to school.
Right? Yeah, and anybody listening, don't think we're going to go back there.
You have to do your homework.
That's right. In 1930, homework was considered child labor, and child labor was against the law. So I thought that was very interesting.
Huh. And was it like that was the discourse around it, or did like the states find that was like, did they try to ban homework?
Yes. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. I don't believe it succeeded.
All right. And then I only have one more, and it's my favorite one to ask because it feels so silly. What is your favorite color and why?
I would have to say sage green, along with all the fall colors. I just like fall. Sage green reminds me of fall. And so I love fall.
Well, that's all I had for you today. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
There are only a few upcoming dates to remember. There will be no school January 18th in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day and Civil Rights Day. Progress reports are coming out February 1st, so keep an eye out for those, and parent-teacher conferences are set to be held February 3rd through 4th, the perfect time to discuss anything on those progress reports. I do have one quick reminder before we wrap up. Anyone who enters a district building must be wearing a mask. Most sites do have some available upon entry, but we still ask that you do your best to abide by our policies. And that's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to this episode of the KUSD podcast. To get even more news and information, check out our website at www.kusd.org. We are Kingman Unified. Talk to you next time.